Hello, and welcome to an episode of AWS She Builds Tech Skills. My name is Candace Bohannon. I am a specialist solutions architect working on the Q developer team, and I'm one of the core team members of this She Builds show. Very excited to be back with you again for another episode here. And today I'm super excited about the hot topic that we are covering and the amazing ladies on our show. Today we're going to talk about MCP. For now, I'm just going to tell you that stands for Model Context Protocol. If you have any experience with MCP, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Tell us some things that you have done with it, any questions that you might have. And throughout this show, we've got some experts who are going to go into this more deeply. So just to kind of kick it off, let's go through you experts and give an introduction of yourselves to our viewers so that they know the types of questions to ask you. So let's start. We're just going to start and go kind of around. Let's start with Jimin. Jimin, give a quick little intro of yourself, what you like about MCP, something like that, and what you do here at AWS.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jimin Kim. I'm a prototyping architect at PACE. I've been working at Amazon for 6 years now. What I do in prototyping team is basically making prototypes for our customers, for sure. I mainly support enterprise and ISP customers. So the prototypes we make is not a toy project. It's rather really to solve real world problems. And what is interesting about MCP server is we started that to make our lives easier. So to make our prototypes more effectively. And now we have a lot more portfolio in our MCP servers, and I hope that makes your life easier too. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. All right, how about you, Alexa?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Alexa Perlov. I'm also a prototyping architect here at AWS. My role is slightly different. Instead of building prototypes that are for customers, I'm very focused on building reusable assets to help accelerate our customers and builders on AWS. So this comes in different flavors. It could be building out Terraform modules that you can reuse, CDK constructs and projects that you can think of as building blocks for your applications. And then most recently, it's come in the form of building out MCP servers. And then, my favorite thing about MCP is not only am I building it, but I'm using it. So the things I'm building, I'm actually gaining a lot of benefit personally from, and it's made my development process a lot faster, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting a couple of comments coming in, a little bit of where in the world are you? And we've got Jignesh Soni here from India. So viewers around the world tuning in for this episode about MCP. Thanks for that, Jignesh. And then Anita, tell us a little bit about your role and your favorite thing about MCP.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anita Lewis. I am a technical program manager at AWS. I've been at AWS for about 2.5 years, actually almost 3 soon. And I'm based out in Denver, Colorado. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining us from all over. And thank you, She Builds, for having us today. I work closely with both Jimin and Alexa when it comes to working with our customers, as well as working with building out open source and reusable assets. And I guess one thing I love about MCP, when I think of the protocol, I think that it solves that kind of last final mile when it comes to AI applications. I think that we have these incredibly powerful AI models, but they've essentially been living in these isolated bubbles. The knowledge cutoffs can range from anywhere between 6 months to 2+ years. Yeah. And MCP changes that completely. It lets your AI connect directly to live databases, current APIs, and actual business systems so it can both access fresh information and actually get work done. So that's kind of where I see the protocol.
Awesome. And just kind of for any of you who are not yet familiar with MCP, here's kind of the intro level where you can go and read a little bit about it. Building kind of on what Anita said, the analogy that is in this doc, which I think is really great, is that MCP is kind of like it's a standardized way of kind of communicating, like USB-C revolutionized our phone and charging abilities. That's kind of what MCP is doing for us. So you can kind of almost think of it like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, but better. So it's really cool, and I'm excited to keep going in this episode today. One thing that go ahead. Sorry. Okay, sorry. One thing that I also wanted to mention is that we have another one of our She Builds team members who is in the chat helping us out, keep up with those. And her name is Jane. So you'll see her respond to some of your chats as we go through this as well. Forgot to introduce her. So let's start talking just a little bit more about your group, the PACE team. So Anita, I think this is a great question for you. What is your mission and what are some of those common things that you do with the customers?
Yeah, so PACE stands for Prototyping and Cloud Engineering. Essentially, we're a team of builders at AWS who turn bold ideas into reality through rapid prototyping and, as Alexa mentioned, open source innovation. We work backwards from your vision, leveraging AWS's capabilities, and build working prototypes that demonstrate what we like to say the art of possible. So as builders ourselves, we don't just prototype. We create reusable accelerators, open source tools that help the broader AWS community innovate faster and ultimately think big. When customers come to us with these, what I would say, ambitious ideas, maybe they want to revolutionize their customer experience with AI or completely reimagine their data pipeline. We get to work immediately. We roll up our sleeves, build working prototypes, and turn the what ifs into reality.
Love that. Super cool. You also quickly mentioned open source. It was almost like a whisper, but I think open source and our presence in open source is growing, and I'm very excited about that. And your group has done a lot of work in that open source community. So can you tell us about some of the things that you're really proud of that your team has been part of?
Yeah, prior to the MCP servers, which we'll talk more about kind of that library, we have the AWS Generative AI CDK Constructs library, and that was kind of our first open source contribution. Think about it this way, when developers want to build GenAI solutions, they shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So we created this library as an extension of AWS CDK that gives you these proven, well-architected patterns. So instead of writing hundreds of lines of infrastructure code, you can literally define a complete GenAI solution in just a few lines. So we're talking like high-level multi-service abstractions that follow AWS best practices out of the box. And we've also built Terraform modules as well. We believe in meeting developers where they are. So whether you're a CDK person or a Terraform person, we want to make sure it's easy for you to build GenAI solutions.
Very cool. I'm a big infrastructure as code person. Started with CloudFormation, and now I've been learning Terraform and CDK as well. So love that. It definitely helps with development overall and things like that. For any of our viewers who are watching right now, let us know if you have any questions about these. If you want to get started contributing to these open source projects, definitely feel free to do that. Ask questions, all of those sort of things as we go along.
Yeah, and if I just can add, like, these aren't theoretical like patterns. These are all born from like real customer engagements, real prototypes that we've built, and essentially real problems we're solving. So we see this as, when we're working with a customer, we kind of think of as we're delivering, how can we also make this available to everyone? So these are all real life situations, as well as we look for contributors all across.
Love that. Teamwork, that's how you get stuff done. And I also love that you're talking about real patterns, because sometimes we talk too much in the theory. So it's nice that these are real things that people can just like pull right into their workflow. So that's awesome. So now let's start talking just a little bit more about MCP. So for our audience, if you have never used MCP, put a 0 in the chat here. But if you have used MCP, give us a little bit of information about what you have done with it. And then I would also love it if Jimin can talk just a little bit more about what problem MCP really solves. So let's start to really dive deep into that, the simple definitions that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, sure. So MCP, people often use the analogy of USB. So that's all about MCP, right? So standardization. So you can easily plug them into your workflow. So LLM, everyone uses it every day. So like developer like me, I use it every day. We all love it, but we all know that it's not perfect. Mainly because there are two gaps I can think of. One is it's not up to date. So by nature, even the latest model is not aware of the most recent update, like Agent Core, which was released 2 weeks ago at New York Summit. LLM wouldn't know what it is. The another thing is LLM is such a generalized and using public data to train, right? So it's not necessarily follow the best practices I want to go with, like AWS best practices or some of the your internal policies. LLM wouldn't be aware of what that is. So LLM has that kind of limitation there, and I think MCP is such an easy and effective way to fill the gap. So again, that's the standard protocol now. Most of the AI clients support that, so you can easily plug them into your workflow, and then yeah, you're go with that MCP servers.
Cool. We're getting a couple of chats coming in. Victor. I know that I've seen him before. Hello. So glad you're here with us today. We also have a quick question. So let's see if we can hit this one now, and maybe we'll get to it later. But I think y'all are totally able to handle this one. So can we create an MCP server using CDK and deploy? Like, do we have any constructs for that today? Do you want to go ahead and answer this one, or do you want to wait until we get to it?
I can answer the question. So
Sure.
we do have some sample deployable CDK sample code for hosting remote MCP server on AWS. That is either using Lambda or Fargate, and even we have Agent Core. So that might be one of the options you want to definitely check out too. So yeah, so I can put the link if it is possible. Is it
Yeah.
okay?
If you put it in our private chat, then Jane can post it out to everybody.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect. Before we do that, though, I'm going to ask you one more question. How do you use MCP in your daily workflow? How do you use that?
Yeah. So I really use a lot of MCP servers, and my MCP configuration that often changes, but there are some of them I always use and they are my favorite. I can share my recent experience in the actual prototype, for example. So I was making Bedrock knowledge base for code analysis, and I was comparing two options, OpenSearch and Neptune GraphRag. I was using LLM, and it was hallucinating, basically saying Neptune is not supported for Bedrock knowledge base, which was not true. So what I did is use AWS documentation MCP server, learn about it, and later you can use CDK MCP server to find deployable pattern for Neptune, which already contains best practices that we define. So that's managed by our team. So I know that's a reliable option for CDK developer. And yeah, it was a one shot, one cure. So these two MCP server I use every day. And if you think about prototyping work, it's not just about development. So once we complete the work, customer need to take it and then continue develop the idea, move to production. So to do that, I need to help customer developer to understand my work. So comprehensive documentation is the key. So using code documentation generation MCP server to generate all the details. And also I use pricing MCP server, that is to estimate my project, how much would that cost. So it will generate documents. So the beauty of the MCP server is even before deployment, you can have the estimation of the project. So based on the scale that you use, like small, medium. So that's how I use MCP server. Of course, there are other MCP servers I often use, like front-end MCP server or synthetic data for generating test data. So that it kind of depends on the situation, but this is how I use MCP server in my daily work.
And most of those that you mentioned, like the core and the pricing, are in the GitHub, right?
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
everyone watching, y'all should definitely check out this this repo right here. It's got so many different examples of those, and many of those are created by the ladies right here on the call. So check that out to get started. It also has a really nice like getting started guide, kind of explains how to use each of these. So this is a really good place to start. I point my customers to this even before you guys were going to be on the show. I was pointing my customers to this, just for the record. So let's now talk just a little bit about your origin story and how open source kind of happened. And then after that, we'll see if there's a couple more questions and then jump into a demo. Everybody loves a demo. And we'll all pray to the demo gods and cross our fingers and do all of the lucky things around the world. But let's talk about, the origin story and open source journey. This question is for Anita. So I've heard, because I've talked to you a few times, about how you started this with a hackathon, and now you're all the way to like being able to show this open source. So just talk a little bit about some of those details that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so earlier this year, we decided to hold a hackathon with our global PACE team. So over 80 attendees split into teams produced within, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 hours with over 20 different MCP server ideas. And what really caught our attention during this hackathon was just how well these MCP servers integrated with kind of the AWS services. And we started looking at some of these projects thinking, wow, this could really benefit the broader developer community if we made them open source. So it really just simply started off wanting to make our lives easier. I believe as Jimin was saying, how we can use this technology for our own process, and then realizing just the broader application to the developer community. That's kind of why I personally love hackathons. I think sometimes the best innovations happen when you just give people the space to experiment and just see what emerges, which I would say bringing that back is the kind of the DNA of PACE. We don't build in isolation. When we create something that works, something that solves real problems, and our first instinct is always, how do we share this? How do we make sure this is available to everyone, and how does it scale?
Agreed completely. There are several hackathons that we have going on too, and like coding challenges and things like that. I don't have links just right in front of me right now. I thought that they were in the last, but anyways, check out our hackathons that we have open to the public as well. It's definitely a great way to just kind of meet people and build some cool stuff that you may or may not have seen before. And then I think I want to make sure that you know that, so we have this question about creating the MCP servers using CDK and deploy. Those answers are coming. The specific ones that Jimin was referencing are coming to you soon. Jane will be posting that for you. Here's just something cute. I don't know what that is, but it's cute. Hello, Digital Boba. So there's that one. Torta Smasher, this is so live. We're live right now. Nothing up our sleeves. We're here talking. So drop us your questions. That was an easy question, so I could take that one. Let's see. There was a question that I missed. Oh, this one. Let's see if we can hit this one. So is there something that you guys can kind of talk just a little bit about? How can we use the microservice concept? I've sometimes seen REST kind of compared to MCP compared to REST. Maybe that's kind of what Dina Carr is asking about. Can one of you elaborate a little bit more on this, or maybe we need a little bit more information? No?
Probably need a little bit more information about clarity on kind of what they're asking.
Yeah, explain just a little bit more about what you're looking for there. I'm going to say your name is Dina Carr. Dina Carr, I think it's cool. If you can just give us a little bit more information, we'll try to get that answered for you as well. Here are those awesome links. They are there in the Twitch and the YouTube chat so that you can click on those if you would like. So that was the answer to the part about deploying stuff. Oh, one other thing that you left out of the story, Anita. There's actually two things. I'll make sure that you talk about the other one. Swami posted about your hackathon. Is that right? Do y'all know Swami? He's like a big dog VP here. So can you just one little expansion on that part, and then we'll get ready for the demo. That's Alexa's part.
Yeah, when we were getting ourselves ready to set up the open source library and deploy, Swami's team reached out. They were excited about what we were working on. And, we were coordinating with their team to have him also announce it. And it was great because, that I think helped accelerate just the visibility around the work that we were doing. And, just for all of us, we're also fans too. So it was a little bit of, a little shell shock that we were on his post.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do. I had Jeff Barr post about one of my blogs that went out one time, and I thought I was going to lose it, like total fangirl moment. I was like, what happened? What happened? What? It's like, I don't know which one's cooler, actually. Both are very, very awesome. So I think that's a very big deal when we can kind of get the big dog VP guys to notice our work too and amplify it and then get more attention on it as well. So that is awesome. So let's see, Alexa, if you want to get your screen ready for the demo, we're going to jump into the demo, see a little bit more about the repo. Let's see, Victor, we are on YouTube. We are on the AWS events YouTube channel. Maybe Jane can drop the link in for you, but you'll be able to catch this and share it with your friends if they can't watch it live. And then here's the YouTube link. That's where we are right now. If you're on YouTube or on Twitch, love a good demo. It's going to be a great demo. We're all excited and sending nothing but happy thoughts because demos are awesome and they never go wrong, but sometimes they do. We're going to be so optimistic and happy and knock on the wood and everything. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add to the stage. You're going to have your screen up and kind of walk us through what we're seeing here. And then we'll come back and catch some more of these questions as well. I'll stop.
Yeah, so before I actually get into the demo, first, I just wanted to walk you all through our repo. So we mentioned everything is open source and publicly available under AWS Labs/MCP. So this is where we have all of our MCP servers. And a really great place to start is, of course, with the README. So just looking at the table of contents for the README, we have some overall documentation. What is MCP? Why AWS MCP servers? And then under this available MCP servers section is where you'll see our breakdown of all of the MCP servers we have. I think we're up to about 55 servers, which has grown like crazy. So to try to make it easier, as somebody who wants to use the servers, we've broken it down into two sections. Browse by what you're building, and then browse by how you're working. And you can kind of peruse these different sections depending on your use case. Of course, with over 55 servers, we don't recommend having all of them installed, and obviously you won't need to use all of them, but depending on what you're doing, like maybe you're focused on data and analytics, you could see the different database MCP servers we have. Maybe you're focused on infrastructure as code. You can drill in to these different sections. So for example, let's go down to infrastructure as code. You get a little snippet of each server we have. And then from there, you can double click into one of the servers. And this brings you into the actual subfolder for the specific MCP server. Each MCP server, of course, has their own README with additional information about it. And then you can see the actual code behind it and how they're built. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, just again, going back to the README. So yeah, we have all the MCP servers laid out. We have instructions for actually installing them for a few different clients you might be using. We have samples in our repos. So you can see the AWS samples within this repo linked here. We have vibe coding tips and tricks. So would highly recommend checking out the guide that's linked right down here in this section. And then, of course, we have a bunch of additional resources. So this includes blog posts, other videos, live streams we've done in the past. Hopefully, look at our YouTube link from this live stream added to the additional resources, but other announcements, blogs, all that good stuff we have linked here. And then we have contributing guidance, and you can see we get a ton of contributors. So shout out to everyone that has contributed. Like Anita said, what started off as a small team project, hackathon, has really blown up, and we love getting external contributions, and we've been working with service teams at AWS, and it's really awesome getting all the collaboration. Yeah. And then last quick call out, so contributor guide, development guide and design guide. All great places for starting if you want to contribute, or also just curious about, maybe you want to build your own MCP server, and our design guidelines are just a great reference across the board.
I'm going to pop up a couple of these comments because Digital Boba, I want to be your friend. Maybe I want to test my PC's cooling fans and run all of them. So I like you, Digital Boba. You're fun. And then there was some questions about from Warren about a good example of MCP in an app for farmers. And then Business AI Forge just jumped in, like maybe they want to be a guest on the show, and suggested monitor crop health, automate irrigation, predict weather. Maybe you could talk just a little bit. I don't know. Would you point out maybe an MCP server that you might recommend that they look at for something like that? Maybe an AIML something?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely take a look at these various breakdowns. Like, it depends on exactly your use case. Like, if you're talking about developing the app itself, like maybe you want you want some front end development, or you want to write the back end and infrastructure as code. But yeah, I would say start off looking at these different use cases and see what you're actually trying to build. Maybe you're focusing on like the data aspects for the app. We have a bunch of different, I'll scroll down a second. We have a bunch of different database MCP servers depending on what you use. So
cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So now I'm actually, any other questions on just like the repo in general before I jump screens to VS Code?
We did get this other question here. My deployment has 6 services and all services are doing cloud-related operations. How can I apply the MCP on this? That's another kind of vague question. Do you have thoughts on how they can apply MCP there? It probably depends on their cloud services and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and the use case. And then again, just reiterating, take a look at what we have because there are a ton of different servers here.
Yes.
Depending on what services you have. Like just looking at the screen here, if you're using like IAM, we have an IAM MCP server. If you're using OpenSearch, there's an OpenSearch MCP server, Yeah.
What I really like about this too, you said IAM, sorry, now it popped into my head, and I talk a lot. I told you this already. I love that the IAM MCP server has security best practices kind of built in. So I think some great stuff about the way that we're developing today is that you can have those best practices built in, just in case you just in case you forget or something like that. I think these sorts of resources are really good to use so that you can make sure you're following best practices.
Definitely. That's something we definitely emphasized on building these different MCP servers.
Cool.
Yeah, adding that layer of AWS best practices.
Yeah. Awesome.
And what's cool about the AWS Services MCP server, they are built by our actual service team. So yeah, it was all possible by our service team's contribution.
Yeah. So thank you, service team. Cool. So again, I'm gonna pop up that GitHub link, copy this. I'm pretty sure Jane dropped it in the chat too, but that is what Alexa was just showing, is that GitHub link. And now a real demo. Everybody ready? Go.
So yeah, I am open on VS Code. As you can see, I'm just in a blank directory, nothing built yet, starting from scratch. And my AI agentic coding tool of choice is Klein. If you're not familiar with it, it's a VS Code plugin. It's awesome. So this is the little Klein window I have popped up.
It just hurts my feelings this much, but we allow freedom of choice here, so it's all okay. QDev is also a good one, right? Okay. Go.
Yes. Yeah, you can choose whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you like to use. It's using Bedrock on the back end and Claude 3.7 as my model. If you click on this little bar here, you can configure MCP servers. So there's an MCP servers marketplace with Klein. If you type in AWS, you can see you can easily install them from the marketplace. But of course, for the sake of the demo, I've already installed the servers I want to highlight. If I click Advanced MCP Settings, oh wait, sorry, that's actually not what I want to click. If I click Configure MCP Servers, it'll pop up the JSON and the READMEs for our MCP servers. They have like the copy and paste JSON that you would put into here to configure your MCP servers. So you can see I have the JSON all configured, and then they're all up and running over here. Yeah, just another thing to note, I change this frequently. I don't always, right now I only have 4 MCP servers available. I tap them in and out depending on what I'm using it for, what the use case is, which is why, like I said before, definitely recommend getting familiar with the MCP servers that are available so you can have a sense of like what you want for a given use case. But yeah, with that, we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to do like a very rushed high level example of what building a prototype could be like, starting from ideation, very quick ideation, to actually developing the infrastructure as code and all that. So to get started, I'm going to say, using the documentation MCP server, tell me about Bedrock knowledge bases in under 100 words. So it's gonna get started with that. And one thing you'll note is right now I'm in Klein's plan mode. Okay, so it's saying it needs to provide info. It's gonna use the MCP server. It wants to use the documentation MCP server to search on Amazon Bedrock knowledge base. Gonna hit approve. And in general, so yeah, it's returning from the MCP server. But in general, when we're starting things, it's always like best practices to go through this sort of planning phase. And then what we would even do was like ask the LLM to generate a planning document and create tasks and all of that good stuff before actually getting into it. So, okay, you can see here it just returned information about Amazon knowledge bases from the documentation MCP server. And this is super awesome because, like Jimin mentioned earlier, these LLMs might be outdated. So if I wanted to use, the new Agent Core service and wanted to like know about it, and I asked just the LLM without the MCP server, it wouldn't know about it, and it might not know the latest Bedrock knowledge base information. So yeah, with the MCP server, yeah.
On that, John Wayne is actually in the audience today, and he is asking, are there any options yet to use these servers with a cloud-hosted app like Strands agents or similar? You mentioned Agent Core. I thought I'd interject.
Yeah, you can absolutely use these with the Strands, with Amazon, with the Strands SDK.
And we did talk about Strands. I think we did a Strands demo last week, and we also had Claire Laguari, who's one of the technical internal leaders. She's a principal engineer here, senior, I don't know. She's super fancy title. We had her on a couple weeks ago as well. So find those and you can learn a little bit more about Strands. And a plug for next week, which I normally do at the end. We're going to have some ladies from Agent Core on the episode next week. So I'm also very excited about learning more about Agent Core next week. I'm sorry. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, awesome stuff. But yeah, so as you can imagine, you're getting the latest documentation, which is great. And then in general, you could continue to iterate and ask it, okay, come up with a plan for developing XYZ. But for the sake of the demo, I'm just gonna keep moving forward and say, great, now let's use the Terraform MCP server to write a main.tf file using, I'm going to prompt it to use a particular module that I know that I want it to use. Instead of just telling it to build something, I'm going to prompt it to use this module.
I was actually curious about that, your prompting, Alexa. So you mentioned in the previous question, use the documentation MCP server, and now you specifically mentioned Terraform MCP server again, and which module to use. What's the logic behind that? Do you always have to mention that?
I think in general, like my best practice advice, if you know you want to use the MCP server, be as specific as you can, because of course this is all non-deterministic. Like if I say, write this Terraform file, and it does use the MCP server once, it might not happen again. So as much context and clear instructions you can give to the LLM, the better. And especially with things like Terraform, I always say to use the MCP server because the LLM can write Terraform code. But the issue I found a lot with using LLMs for writing Terraform is it's often hallucinated. Like it'll write, module blocks that have inputs that don't exist, and then it also will give me resources that are deprecated, and I'm like, I don't want that. So
Yeah.
the beauty of the MCP server, or I guess actually to answer your question, especially if I know it's something the LLM could potentially try to do without the MCP server, I'll be very specific in saying use the MCP server.
Yeah, I can relate there. So LLM often think I know how to do this, and it just without using MCP server and go straight, and the code is not working. So I think it's very clever to say, hey, use Terraform MCP server in this case.
Yeah.
And I like to promote one of my colleagues' blogs about mastering Amazon Q Developer around effective prompts. And all of these tools are using an LLM under the covers. So like prompt engineering is kind of generic. So I will post that link here in just a couple minutes, but it is by one of my colleagues, Will Matos, and it's a really great blog that I would recommend checking out. We're also getting a lot of thank yous. Just want you ladies to know, thank you. Awesome stream. We'll check out the MCP servers. John Wayne, love this. John Wayne said, thank you. I'm done for the day. And then one quick question about the frequency of this session. So we have this session for AWS She Builds Tech Skills every Monday at 9:30 Pacific. I'm in Central Time Zone, and I'm terrible at time zone math, so I cannot help you. But it is at 9:30 Pacific every Monday. Next week is about Agent Core. Following week, I think, is Kiro. So we're trying to do some keep us up with hot topics. So
awesome. So yeah, just like quick overview of what's happening here. Basically, the Terraform MCP server, I told it to use a module. So it has a tool that knows how to query modules that are on the Terraform registry. And it grabs all the information about the providers for the module, the source, the version, all the input variables, the outputs, so that it's getting the latest information. It knows how to properly implement it. And so you can see then that LLM went and generated exactly what I asked. This is going to deploy, it's using the Bedrock module I told it to use, and it's going to deploy a knowledge base. And it's leaving most of the defaults. And I did say in my little prompt, I put in parentheses default, so that's awesome. It even wrote up a README, and now it's going through and it's starting to write variables. And I think the next steps is it'll start to unhard code some of these values and make things more variable driven. And I'm going to go ahead and click save for the variables. It can keep going. In a few moments, I'm going to probably hit cancel and ask it a different prompt and like pause its Terraform development. But yeah, some other things you can do with this MCP server is ask it how my security posture is, if I'm following AWS best practices. It does check off security scans, Terraform validations and deployments. So super cool. And like I said, now it's going through and making all these hard-coded values variables. So I'll save that and I'm going to hit cancel. And now, because it'll keep going.
Hold on. Before you start this next, we got a really good question. What happens if an MCP server gets updated to a newer version? Does client or queue CLI automatically connect to the latest version? And how do you specify the version?
If you look, we're pulling in the latest from PyPy, so it'll get the latest.
but you could specify the version if you wanted to go back to 1.1 or whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got a quick hi. Oh, I can't show this one. There it is. Hi. I can't say your name, but hi.
Also, I'll probably note that Alexa is our subject matter expert when it comes to Terraform. She is the one behind the Terraform modules, as well as, fun fact, the Terraform MCP server was her hackathon project during the PACE Global Hackathon. Her team was working on that, which I believe they won second place. They're definitely up there. So being that it was such a great idea, moved into becoming part of one of the first 4 or 5 MCP servers we deployed.
Amazing.
So she's the one. She would know how the MCP server, the Terraform MCP server works, because she is very much involved and continues to update it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a slightly biased demo. Quick plug for the Terraform MCP server.
No.
But now, like, let's say our Terraform or infrastructure as code looks great. We're ready. Prototype is in good shape. Now, maybe I want to generate an architecture diagram for said prototype. So I can go ahead and say, using the diagram MCP server, generate a diagram for the given Terraform config.
Also, this is Adam. Enterprise AI with Adam, E equals MCP. Woo, that's funny. Thank you for that.
So Alexa, I noticed you from plan mode switch to act mode. So how do you make that decision when to switch?
Yeah, kind of like what I was hinting at the beginning when we started with the documentation. In general, starting in plan mode is always a best practice and coming up with your plan. And before you have your agent actually going and doing stuff, you want it to come up with a thought out plan. And then when I'm ready to actually start writing code or start writing my Terraform, I go ahead and toggle it to act so it can actually go ahead and create these files. But yeah, one thing you'll also notice is this auto approve, and you've probably seen me, I've had to approve a bunch. I like to be very cautious with my auto approve. As much as I wish I could just write one prompt and walk away and have it all be done in one go, I know that's not how it works, and it's not a good practice. In general, I allow all read actions for project files, and it's allowed to execute safe commands. So it won't necessarily run a file in my terminal, but whatever. But it can like CD into a folder or something like that. And then I allow it to use MCP servers and to use the browser. But I really like to be very active in this vibe coding and approve, each step of the way, especially when it's writing code. I like to see what's actually happening.
That's also what I preach the same things when I'm talking to my customers about this, because I mean, QDev, but this is like my day job. And I tell people, it's kind of silly, I have trust issues. I'm not just going to trust this tool to go do the things. I'm going to look at every single thing, and starting with a plan is how you can make sure that you don't like lean too far into the vibe, is what I say. Again, like I have silly ways of saying things, but having that plan to start with is a really important piece so that you get what you expect when you come out. So yeah,
within like those 2 minutes of chatting about plan and act and all that, it generated these 2 different architecture diagrams. Of course, it's a very simple architecture. It's a Bedrock knowledge base with an OpenSearch serverless vector store and a S3 data source. So, but it's cool to see how quickly and easily it can produce an accurate architecture diagram. It also did a Terraform module overview. So it's showing like we have a main TF file of variables. It's showing the resources that are getting deployed. So yeah, that's really awesome.
I was going to say the diagram MCP server happens to be one of the most popular ones within our SA community, because when we've done a lot of internal enablement, this is one of the ones that's really kind of helped them in their process when they're working with customers.
And we're architects. We like the picture. Like it makes
Exactly.
I need to see it. So
Yeah. And I think we'll end the demo there. Hopefully this gives you like a taste of how you could use different MCP servers in your workflow and how quickly and easily they integrate into it.
awesome. Cool. Well, I think this was a super cool demo. We're down to like our last 10 or 15 minutes. Let's see. Let's answer a quick little question from Digital Boba, because Digital Boba is my new friend. But Digital Boba is wondering, what is the purpose? We did answer this at the beginning, but I think this is really important to reiterate that there is a purpose for it. It's not just the cool new buzzword. So would one of you like to reiterate this part? What is the purpose of MCP?
Yeah, it provides the standardized way of connecting your LLMs to external tools and resources and context it might not have otherwise. So yeah, it's all about this external connection. And then your MCP servers, they define different tools, resources, prompts, and then it plugs into your different LLMs. So the cool thing is, like in the past, if you wanted to integrate like a specific tool to an LLM, you'd have to create a custom integration for your model. And maybe for each particular model, it would be something different. So you'd have to constantly be creating different integrations for each specific tool you want to use. So now MCP comes in, it provides the standardized way of communication between the two. And if you look at our repo, like it's all there, all the MCP servers they're open source. You can click into the different servers and see how we build those tools, what those tools look like. For example, with the Terraform one that I demoed, the tool it used was called like fetching. It was fetching a particular, like a user passed module from the Terraform registry. And what that tool looks like, it's just, a Python file that is going and parsing, getting the latest Terraform registry info, parsing it and returning that information to the LLM, because the LLM might not have that info, especially because the stuff is changing and like constantly new things are coming out. So keeping the LLM up to date.
And then I will also want to make sure, I don't think I've posted this yet. So this is a blog. Who wrote this blog? One of you wrote this blog, right? Some of you? Some people from your team?
I think we all contributed.
Yeah.
Amazing. So anybody want to talk just a little bit about what's in this blog and why people should go read it?
Yeah, so I can talk about the blog. So it is to introduce the initial set of our MCP server. Now we have more than 50, but by the time I think we had like 6 something. So, but still it is a good starting point for you. So first of all, we were kind of focusing on 2, 5 coding mostly. So right now we are not just serving developer persona. It's a lot wider now, but the first initial blog is to introduce the initial set of MCP servers, how you can use in full stack developing on AWS.
Awesome. Yeah, so check out the blog. I see Jane also posted it in the Twitch chat, so you can click on it more easily there. I love getting started kind of with blogs because you can just get a nice overview of it before you go in and check out the code and really get going with it. Let's see. So I think we'll probably start to close this out unless we get more questions from the audience. But what I wanted to make sure that we talk about, what you ladies get to offer to our viewers, is one piece of advice for developers who want to build MCP servers. So Alexa is amazing at building MCP servers. Jimin is amazing at using the MCP servers. I'm sure you've built some too. But what would you kind of recommend to people who want to get started in this space?
I'll go first.
Go
I
ahead,
would say keep security top of mind. Security first, especially like you want people to use these MCP servers. You want them to trust them. They're installing them locally or deploying them on Lambda or Fargate, but you want them, you want to instill trust in it. And of course, it's working with your LLM. So you need to make sure you have the right guardrails in place. So like an example I always think about is if it's something that's interacting with your AWS services or databases, if it can do mutating actions, put a read-only mode. It's so easy. Like basically any tool that has a mutating action, make sure the user, whoever's configuring their MCP, like the end user, is passing in read-only true or false. So they're actively acknowledging I'm giving the MCP server permission to write to my database or delete things or whatever it is. So yeah, just little things like that, security top of mind.
Great. I think that's an area that we need to really focus on because this could get Wild West. And so it's really good to definitely keep that in mind. Anita, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I think Jimin and Alexa are going to give a great perspective when it comes to the developer side. So as a technical program manager, I'll give a different viewpoint. My advice is more so start by identifying friction points in your organization or your team's AI adoption. So what I mean by that is don't start with the technology, start with the problems. Walk around your teams, your organization, and just think to yourself, where are my teams getting stuck when trying to make AI useful? What data sources are they trying to connect to? What manual processes could be automated if AI could just talk to the right systems? Because when I think about what we learned from our hackathon is that the MCP servers that really stood out weren't the ones that necessarily solved incredibly complex, hyper-specific problems. They were the ones that solved really common problems in reusable ways. So when I think of myself as a TPM, I find that we're kind of uniquely positioned to see those patterns across teams. Maybe 3 different groups are all trying to connect AI to your CRM, or maybe everyone's struggling with the same document processing workflow. That's where an MCP opportunity might be there. So key is just kind of finding where you can identify that common pain point and working with your engineering team to build it once they share it and share it widely. So essentially the thing that I say over is don't let every team reinvent the same wheel, but as TPMs, I think we're uniquely positioned to kind of see the zoomed out, vision of like the overall problem across multiple teams.
Yeah, I also love that because I think that sometimes as nerds, I'm a nerd. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but like as nerds, we just get excited about the new technology. And sometimes we just want to use it without an actual reason to use it. So focus on the reason. And then once it's a good reason, other people are going to use it too. So let them use it. That's a great one, Anita. How about you, Jimin?
Yeah, I first of all 100% agree to both Alexa and Anita said. If I add one practical tip on that, I've been asked to create custom MCP server for our customers, and my piece of advice is check that out our repository because there are already 50 MCP server, and chances are the one you are looking for is already there, and it happened to me already. So I was making an agent doing log analysis, and there was CloudWatch MCP server which does a log inside query and metrics and all the things. So there was even better MCP server that I can use. So yeah, that might be your story too.
Yeah, I think that's also a very good one. It kind of covers both of Anita's story as well, like of the real example. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I think anything else you guys want to add before we kind of close this out for today? Any other
I was going to say just
go ahead.
Please visit our repo. I think just further, on what Jimin was saying, there probably is something that we've already created that could be useful to you. Almost every kind of organization now is really trying to also lean into MCP servers and creating. So, check those out. And then when it comes to a little bit on the security tip is make sure you are using MCP servers that are from that organization. Right. So, an AWS server that's built by AWS, for example, you can lean on knowing that the security best practices are there and feeling that's safe and secure security there. So also, even when you're using ours, read through the README, read through the code, familiarize with like how we built it. Don't trust us because we just said to, but it's always, make sure that you are using something that's from the organization and then doing your due diligence to read through how it's built.
Love that. That's awesome. Love that we were able to end with such a good bit of words of wisdom as we close this out. I just want to thank you all for being on the show, sharing with us and all of our viewers what you have learned through open sourcing, through building MCP servers and putting them into open source, allowing for contributors. Definitely anyone who's watching, if you see something or want to add, please do so in the repo. Don't forget to check the contributor guide and the READMEs and all of those sorts of things. Next week, we will be back and we're going to be talking about Agent Core. It was just launched or announced. It might be still in beta. Anyways, it was announced for sure at the New York Summit a couple of weeks ago by Swami, the big dog. And so we'll have a couple of ladies talking about that next week at 9:30 Pacific on Monday. And then after that, we're going to have a Kiro demo that I'm really excited about. Our guest is Natalie White, and I think she's amazing. And so just keep on watching, subscribe to this AWS events YouTube channel, and check us out here on Twitch as well. Thanks so much for watching, and hope to see you again next week. And thanks so much for our guests too. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much.
having us.
Everyone.